There is a straightforward way to learn a lot about the military. Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and lately I've done a number of videos where I talk about the cultural differences between folks in the military and government civilians who've never served in uniform. Little nuances in communication that can easily be misunderstood, like the meaning of the word alibi or what exactly an after-action review is. And look, I know that these miscommunications go both ways. I am confident that those of us who spent decades in uniform are oblivious to things that are patently obvious to civilians. But I don't really have an idea of what those might be. So if you have an idea, leave a comment. Today, I'm back with a proposal for you civilians who might be interested in just learning a little more about the military culture. In fact, I argue that if you do this one thing, you can learn more about the military in one afternoon than you could through any other technique, and that is go to a military rifle range. Army soldiers are required to qualify at least once a year with their rifle, and so military rifle ranges are constantly filled with units performing this basic task. Even if you aren't close to a major military installation, I guarantee you that Army Reserve and National Guard units close by to you are headed to the rifle range soon. Now, there's a couple of reasons that I argue that going to a rifle range is beneficial. And the first one is, if you have never personally fired a rifle before, that's a gap in experience that you have between every single person in the military and yourself. And by the same token, if you grew up like me, hunting in a rural setting, trust me, organizing 125 people to all go shoot their rifles at the same time, that's a different experience. That kind of gets at the second reason to go to a rifle range. If your primary exposure to military people is in an office setting, their behavior can often seem kind of lackadaisical. Not so at a rifle range. One of the things about military people is that when they engage in what they perceive to be a high-risk task, they crank up their intensity. And by the same token, when they perceive something as low threat, well, they back off on that intensity. Not only can going to a rifle range show you what it looks like when a leadership team engages in one of those high-intensity activities, but it'll also give you a sense for when somebody perceives a threat in the office setting and increases their intensity. A long time ago, one of my jobs was to conduct spot inventory inspections, and I quickly learned that a lot of combat arms folks viewed that as a high-risk event. I learned to be less threatening and allay their fears before they got triggered. Of course, another reason to go to a rifle range is because so many military terms come from this one setting. Range walk. Take all commands from the tower. Watch your lane. And alibi are just a few of them. I'm suspicious that people hear these phrases all the time, but if they went to a rifle range, they'd be like, oh, I understand what they're talking about. The final reason I give you for going to a rifle range has to do with how military authority works. I have met a lot of civilians who kind of assume that soldiers do what they're told, or that you follow the orders of the people who are senior to you. That is not at all how it works, and a rifle range will show you just how nuanced military authority can become. In a lot of cases, the range officer is actually a mid-grade NCO who's recently been licensed and certified by range control. That guy is in charge of the range, and if a general officer told him to violate a rule, well, sir, I can only assume that this is a test because there's no way I'm going to allow that to happen. And at the same time, that PFC loading ammunition into magazines, if he sees something wrong, he has the full authority and support of leadership to speak up and stop it. Once you realize that soldiers are their own thinking creatures with their own rights and powers starts to put a lot of stuff into a new perspective. And I'll close with this final thought. If you're a military person with lots of civilian coworkers, look for opportunities to expose them to your culture. It doesn't have to be a rifle range. It could be a rappel tower or land nav or an obstacle course. Any of dozens of things that are riskier than sitting at a computer desk, but they are also an everyday part of military service. And now, if you want to see a way to put that experience to work, watch this video.